We don't talk enough about the expenses involved in renting a car. How much does it cost? How much should it cost? Should you be buying the insurance? We can answer all these questions because we just rented a car in a different country and we even got into a small car accident, so we're putting the insurance to the literal test. Okay, so we recently went on a trip to Spain and Portugal and we decided to drive between two cities in the south of Spain. So we started in Granada and then drove our rental car through a few different small towns called Setenil de Bodegas and also Ronda, and then eventually ended up in Seville later that same day. Now, when you rent a car internationally, the first thing that you have to do is actually get something called an international driver's permit. Now, this is basically documentation that shows when you're in the foreign country, if you were to get pulled over, that you are actually licensed to be driving there, since your typical regular driver's license isn't always allowed in that other country. Now, we actually went to a CAA store in person to do this. Keep in mind that you can get all this done online and mail everything in if you want to, but we wanted to actually go in person so that we could show you guys the process. So let's cut to that footage now.
All right, guys, so we're outside the CAA store. We're here to get my international driving permit that, once again, is gonna allow me to not only be able to drive in Europe, but ideally when I'm actually like driving around, I'm not gonna have the fear of like being pulled over and there being something wrong with my license, that kind of thing. So we're here at the CAA store, which is like one of very few in Canada, I think. And it should only take 20 minutes and it should only cost $20. So let's go see what's up and let's go get it. Come. So I just got the international driving permit. It ended up costing just over $50 after tax. And on top of that, the trip is really coming up quick. So it's gonna be Sunday, Monday today. So literally 6 days. And
we have a friend who did it the same day, so we wanted to be a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was $50 because he had to get a photo taken too for it. So a little more than we expected, but done. And we're pretty much ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
So overall, it was a really simple process. It ended up costing us a total of $52.54 for the permit and also to get the photos taken. Technically, the permit would be cheaper on its own, but we also have an extra photo for the future if we need it, so that's nice to have.
Now, when it came to actually getting the rental car, we decided to pre-book everything online in advance to mainly make sure that we weren't showing up to a new country where, we were at a different hertz and all of a sudden they're telling you that they can't rent you a car because all the cars are gone. So that was one of the big things we wanted to mitigate. The next couple things include us making sure that we're getting an automatic car and making sure that it was gas operated. So automatic, pretty simple. Me and Steph can't drive standard or manual. Gas, we wanted to make sure that we weren't getting an electric car where we were gonna have to figure out how to find an electric charging place. Those were really big things. And what's funny is that I say all this now, but at the end of the day, once we got there, even after all the pre-booking and everything, we still ran into some issues. So we did take some footage of that, of us actually showing up and getting there and kind of running through a little bit of a hassle with them. So let's actually cut to that footage. All right, so we're outside the Granada train station right now. We just finished having brunch and now we're gonna pick up the car. So I believe the Hertz, that's who we're renting the car with. It was through Expedia. We'll probably have explained all that anyways. We're gonna go in and actually figure out what they're gonna need from me in order to actually pick up the car. So we're gonna get the car so that we can drive to Seville. So let's go. Hi, so I had a reservation.
Okay, so driver's license and passport.
Yes. There's no gasoline vehicle?
No.
What's the point of reservations if you can't reserve something?
Excuse me, madam. Are you recording?
I'm just...
But recording is in the office is forbidden. It is not allowed.
Okay, that's fine.
And it's going to be cheaper, this, than the gasoline.
So you don't think you should have told me that before you took my credit card? Do me a favor, okay? Let's cancel. So to sum things up, basically what happened was we showed up at the Hertz with our reservations and everything in order. We thought it was gonna be super simple. We thought that we were just gonna give them our reservation number. They were gonna give us the keys, say sign here, sign there, you're good to go, have a good day. That's obviously not what happened. Basically what we think happened was there was 2 bookings for a gas powered vehicle. And I think it was probably like a first come, first serve. We showed up and then in their minds, they're like, well, why don't we just try and convince them to take the electric vehicle? Now, we obviously didn't want it because we didn't want to have to figure out where the charging stations are. And also like, we had our pre-booking ready to go, so our minds were just on picking up the car and just kind of going. So it was really unnecessary to have to do this whole back and forth and kind of this little like song and dance of like, you know, maybe you should take it. We're like, no. They're like, please, no. They're like, take it. So it was just this really unnecessary thing, and ultimately they still gave us the gas-powered vehicle. We just kind of had to go through this once again. Very unnecessary talk. So we paid about $235 for the rental car, and it was broken up into 3 different fees. So the first fee was actually our daily rate, so that allowed us to drive an unlimited amount of kilometers. The second one was a one-way fee. So if you were someone who was renting the car but not returning it to the same location, then you would have to pay this one-way fee for you not returning the car, basically. And then the other one was a really small one, but it was for roadside assistance. So if anything happened while we were driving and we needed the equivalent of like CAA or like AAA, then we would have that handy to go whenever we need it, basically. Now, when it came to insurance, that's actually a cost that we paid prior to even showing up on our trip. So that was a part of the pre-booking. That was actually the only thing we actually had to pay beforehand, and that was about $32. And now that we've got some of the initial costs covered, after that we got the keys, went to grab the car, and actually finally hit the road. So let's cut to that footage.
There it is.
Okay, so we're now officially on the road. There's Dennis driving over there. We have been driving for the last probably hour and a half. Since we last saw you at the rental car place, we swung by the Airbnb, which was definitely a bit of a journey going through like the small roads. Had to pack up. Actually, we were packed up. I had to grab everything, pack up the car, figure out how to actually open up the trunk. Dennis said that was a bit of an issue. I was in the Airbnb at the time. But yeah, now we're on the road. It's been really nice and fun. It's cool. Even right now, there's some cool buildings outside. I was laughing before because I was wondering if the buildings we think are cool are just super regular buildings here. But yeah, it's been nice getting on the road. We're about 50 minutes out from our first stop, which is San Itil de la Bodega. And then after that, we'll be hitting up some other places before we make our way to Seville tonight, but we're making pretty good time. Yeah, the rental car place slowed us down a little bit, but we'll be there just after 1:30, and that's where we're at right now. But rental car wise, it's going smooth. The car is not too bad. The road trip was actually really fun, and it was nice being able to drive through some of these like smaller back roads in these different cities and towns throughout Spain. I think that's something that's nice about renting a car to begin with. Well, in general, over our trip, most of our transportation was either flying or different types of trains. But one of the reasons that we wanted to rent a car was, well, first of all, it does save us a little bit of money potentially compared to flying. It depends on what deal you get on the flights and how much you end up paying for your rental car, but it could be a little cheaper than that, even if it's slightly more expensive than a train. But the real pro for us, even if it's not from the money side of things, is that you get to see different spots that you wouldn't otherwise get to. Like, we took this windy path down to these other towns that a train wouldn't allow us to stop at. Obviously a plane wouldn't either. So we got to see all these nice views and different spots that otherwise we wouldn't have been able to check out and experience. Now, even though the road trip was amazing, we unfortunately did at the very end of the day, like literally the very final hour and a half stretch drive we were going to take to get us to our final destination, we got into a little car accident, which was quite the experience. Basically, we're going around, actually this is really funny, we had gone on so many small, crazy, winding streets where I was terrified the whole time. There's literally a video of me like freaking out in the background noise.
Oh, this is a no for me, bruh. This is not what I like to do. What is this?
That is not where we got into the car accident. We got into the car accident doing a roundabout on one of the bigger, more major roads in Ronda, Spain specifically. And again, we have roundabouts here, so it's not like we're not used to them, but we were taking a roundabout and this man in this tiny car went so fast to the roundabout and ended up hitting us, the very corner of our car, and he just didn't stop right away. And when he did, he'd already dented in his door as well. He motioned us to pull over. He only spoke Spanish. We only spoke English. So there was definitely a funny experience with the language barrier. Luckily, he was really nice. And even though the police ended up being called to do a police report, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the insurance side of things, it was more so like a frazzling, but ended up being okay experience. We did take a clip of us in the car right afterwards. You can see our like in the moment, how we were feeling then. So let's cut to that and then I'll explain a little bit more. Okay guys, we just ended our travel day in San Itil de la Bodegas and also Ronda. It was really cool. We were just talking about how great our day was, and then we got into a little car accident. It was just not fun at all. Oh my god, you can see the sun's literally about to go down. Sunset is in 1 minute. We're in these like tiny back roads. in Ronda, Spain right now. Oh man, honestly, I'm still a little bit like frazzled from it. Basically, we're going around a roundabout. There's a lot of them here. Honestly, there's a lot back home too, so it's not like we don't know how to work a roundabout. But there was this little car driving very fast right through it, and technically he hit us, but the side of his car got a little more hit up. He spoke no English. We unfortunately speak no Spanish. So he ended up calling the municipal guard, which is the police there, who helped kind of like translate in between. Ended up having to file a police report, which means this will go through insurance. Luckily, we bought car insurance, so we'll talk more about that at some point, I'm sure. But definitely an experience, and yeah, we'll talk more about it too. But now we have like 1 more minute of sunlight before the sun goes down, so we thought we'd let you know in real time. And then I guess we'll update you when we're actually at our final destination, dropping off the rental car. That's been the rental car experience of craziness today, but we'll wrap it up at some point. Okay guys, so we dropped our stuff off at the Airbnb and now we're at the gas station because obviously we got to fill the rental car back up with gas. Full tank before we go drop it off. Dropping it off at the train station in Seville where we just arrived. By the way, we're filming this on the iPhone because we didn't want to walk the half hour back from the train station to the Airbnb with the camera if we didn't have to. It's now about 11 o'clock p.m., a little later than scheduled, but we made it here. Gas is done. Now dropping off the car. Luckily, I think there's just a key drop box when we get there, so should be pretty smooth, and that's it. How was your gas getting experience?
Honestly, it wasn't that bad. Pretty similar to how we do it in Canada, so yeah, not too bad.
Next stop, drop off this bad boy.
Time to get rid of this car.
We're ready.
To be honest, it's like the car from hell right now, so let's get rid of it.
So the good news, like I mentioned in that clip, is that we did get insurance, and I'm gonna have Dennis talk a little bit more about that and how that process works.
So the insurance was actually really easy to get because it literally popped up right at the end of my Expedia window when I was booking the car initially. It literally just said, hey, like I see you booking this car. Do you also want some rental car insurance along with that? And I basically just said yes and then went through the process. Now, what's interesting when it comes to rental car insurance, especially when we're talking about international trips, a lot of people you'll notice usually opt for using their credit card. Now, the thing about this is that you can get rental car insurance through a credit card, but it's important to make sure that your credit card that you have actually offers this perk. So a lot of the times when it comes to those no fee credit cards, or the credit cards where you don't typically have to pay a fee or don't explicitly say that they have this perk, they usually don't have it, right? So it's important to, one, make sure that you figure that out. For us, when we were looking into all this, our credit cards, me and Steph, neither of us had one that actually had this perk. So we basically just looked at each other and said, hey, if it says that they have collision and damage protection, let's just get it through either Expedia or let's get it through some other company. Now, even though we purchased the insurance off of Expedia, the actual policy would be with AIG. So they're the insurance company where should anything happen during your trip, they're the ones that you'd actually file a claim to. Also, the general terms of the policy are pretty simple, and it's usually the case if you're booking your rental car through your credit card company and that's who you're getting your insurance through. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that there are some key exceptions in the policy that will absolutely cause you to void your policy altogether. So you got to make sure that you take a read through and just keep those in mind as well. So in our case, the policy was set to cover up to $65,000 in damages due to theft, vandalism, and collision. Luckily for us, the damages weren't that bad, but I do think they usually have a number that's big enough, not too big, but big enough to cover, let's say, if a car can't be repaired or replaced. Now, if there's even one thing that you're going to take away from me even talking about rental car insurance, it's that in the vast majority of these policies, in the fine print, it usually says that you have to decline the collision damage waiver that's offered to you by the rental car company. So what this means is that the rental car company, when you show up to pick up your car, they're usually going to try and sell you on all these different products. We have, this type of damage protection, this type of damage protection. The collision damage protection that they offer is usually the equivalent product to what your insurance company is offering. So the insurance company is basically saying, in order for us to insure you, we need to make sure that you're not already insured by the rental car company. So you have to make sure that you decline it, which is what we did. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that they might throw into the fine print or into the policy in general. So you have to make sure you really do a good read through the policy. I know for our policy, it did have an age restriction, so you had to make sure that you were above the age of 25 in order to qualify for the policy itself. Now, theoretically, I could have been like 21, just like trying to rent a car and thinking I was doing my due diligence by just buying it, but they will not accept a claim if you're not above the age of 25. Now, another thing would be like them stating that due to, if you have a collision or if you have any damages, they will not accept the claim where it was because it was rooted in you being under the influence. So if you're under the influence of alcohol, drugs, whatever, they will not accept your claim. Now, overall, like, I think the main lesson here, especially for us, is just make sure you know what is in your policy and what will cause you to void your policy. These are all like super key things. Anyways, for us, the total cost of the rental turned into $531. And if you're wondering what's with that difference between the $235 that I said earlier versus this $531, that's because of the damages, right? So because we got into that collision, this is the amount of damages that they estimated and decided to charge us on the final invoice for the car. Now, we are gonna be sending in a claim to the insurance company in order to get that money back for the damages. And then any damages to the other car, we're gonna have to, like, I don't know, keep track and see how that goes. But yeah, if you haven't checked out any of our previous videos, make sure you do check them out next door. And yeah, we'll see you next week.